Alright, so after you watch the trigonometric ratios video, you may have been a little lost at the end of it and wondered, well, how in the world are we going to use this stuff to do anything? There weren't any numbers in any of it. It didn't make any sense. So I'm going to try to help you clarify it a little bit here by doing a couple of practice problems. So if you're titling your notes, we can call these trig practice problems. Okay, so just a couple of examples of how this is going to work. Now, when you look at this triangle here, this triangle ABC, they tell us that the hypotenuse is 5. So I know the hypotenuse here is 5. But I don't know anything else. And up until this point in your math career, this would be a problem that you couldn't solve. You couldn't do any more with it. Now, if this had been 60 degrees, you could use the 30, 60, 90 method and you could solve this triangle. But since it's 63 degrees, you're really kind of stuck. There's nothing that you can do. But the trigonometric ratios, or the trig ratios, are the way you can solve these kind of problems. And like I had said before, they're a way that you can solve right triangles when you only have one. If we had another triangle, if we had like this over here, and we knew that this was 2 and this was 3, and we could do 5 over 2 and this over 3, and we could figure it out. But we're not going to have anything like that. This is just all we've got. So the only thing that's given to us is this 63 degrees. So that lets us know that 63 degrees and this angle, angle A, is where everything we do in this problem is going to be based off of. So when I find this angle here, identify 63 degrees is the angle that I'm going to be referencing for everything. I immediately know that this side, BC, is the opposite, and I know that this side, AC, is the adjacent. Okay, so it's opposite from 63, BC is opposite from 63, and AC is adjacent to 63. So if I want to find the length of, let's say that my problem says to find BC. So I want to find out how long this is. I know that I need to find the opposite side. And I know that I've been given the hypotenuse. So anytime I'm doing a trig problem, I want to think about my SOHCAHTOA. Okay, and you remember that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So to solve this problem, I want to use whichever one of these methods uses opposite and hypotenuse. And for me, opposite and hypotenuse, that means I'm going to use the sine ratio. So in our videos, we wrote down sine A. Well, that's because we didn't know what A was. Now, I know that A is 63. So I'm going to write sine 63 degrees. And that equals, and I know here that sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of 63 degrees equals the opposite. And when I don't know how long something is, I call it x. So B to C is just x in my problem. And I'm going to do the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is 5. So now I have sine 63 equals x over 5. To solve that, I need to get rid of this 5. Well, this says x divided by 5. So the opposite of divide by 5 is multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. Now, on the right side, that's easy peasy, right? Now I've got x equals. I'm almost done. But on the left side, I have 5 times sine 63. And that may look a little intimidating to you. But luckily for you, there's a button on your calculator that says this. So you literally just type it in your calculator just like this. Push 5, then push the sine button, and then type 63 and hit enter. And you should get 4.46 inches. Now, that was rounded to 4.46. So when we do a problem like this, we don't want to say that x equals 4.46 because it doesn't. We want to say that x is approximately equal to 4.46. So just a small detail, but that's the way you want to do it. So you go ahead and try to find the other side. So find AC. And you want to pause it right now and then turn it back on in just a second. So to find AC, that means you want to find the adjacent side. Now, the adjacent is the one you don't know, so we'll call it y, because we already used x. The hypotenuse I do know is 5. I also know the opposite is 4.46, but you don't want to use the numbers that you found in a previous part of the problem unless you have to, because that if you miss this one, now you're going to miss all of it. So I want to do whichever method involves using the adjacent and the hypotenuse, and that is the cosine. And I know that cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So I write cosine 63 degrees equals, now not x, but I already used x, so the adjacent is the y over the hypotenuse, which is 5. And then just like before, I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. And I'm going to get 5 cosine 63 equals y. Now, when I type that in my calculator, I get that y is approximately equal to 2.27 inches. Okay, and that's it. So I'm going to do another example now. I'm going to slide down, look at this one, and if it helps you every single problem you do, you might as well write SOHCAHTOA at the top of it until you've got this just so memorized that you couldn't forget it. And I've been teaching, or I've been doing this process longer than you've been alive, and I'm still writing it, so that should let you know how important it is to write it down and get it correct. Now when we look at this triangle, this one's a little different. Okay, it has a hypotenuse, right, over here. This is the hypotenuse, but we don't know what it is. It does have a side right here. This side is 8 meters. And then it has a side over here that's unknown. So before I even start this problem, I'm going to label the sides. We'll say that the hypotenuse is going to be A, and this side over here is going to be B. Okay, so if we want to find the hypotenuse, let's say we want to find A. Well, we need to figure out where we're going to start at. And this 38 right here lets us know exactly how we're going to do this problem. Because with this 38, the 8 becomes the opposite, and side B is the adjacent. So now I know all my sides, at least I know how they relate to this 38-degree angle. So I'm going to find A, I'm going to find the hypotenuse. So which uses hypotenuse and opposite? Because opposite is the only one I know, so I'm going to have to use opposite in all of them. I go over here and look, and SOH. So once again, sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now, I'm going to write it down. Sine 38 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now, this looks a little different, but it doesn't go any differently than the last problem. What we want to do is get this A by itself, but the first glaring issue that we have to deal with is that the A is on the bottom, and that's not where we want it. So to get this A by itself, we're going to first have to get it off of the bottom of this fraction. And to do that, we do exactly like we did before. We multiply both sides by whatever we want to go away from the bottom. Okay, so A times A, that's the only reason we did that, was to get rid of those. So now we have A sine 38 degrees equals 8. Now before, this is where we just typed this in the calculator and got our answers, but we want the A by itself. And this literally says A times sine 38. Well, if it's a times, we're going to do divided by sine 38 because that's how we get rid of things that are multiplied. On the left side, it looks weird, but it still just cancels out. And we get that a equals 8 over sine 38. Take my graphing calculator and I type 8 divided by sine 38. So I know that a is approximately equal to 12.99 meters. So very close to 13. Now you go ahead and try to find side B, find the adjacent. Go ahead and pause it, see if you can get it, and then unpause it, fast forward to the answer if you feel like you got it. So to find side B, that we're looking now for the adjacent side. The only other thing we can use to find the adjacent side is the opposite side because that's all that was given to us. So I look through my trig ratios. I have opposite and hypotenuse, adjacent and hypotenuse, and over here I have opposite and adjacent. And that's the one I want because it uses the thing that I know and the thing that I'm looking for. It wouldn't do me any good to use a hypotenuse in this scenario. So I know that T stands for tangent, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So I write down tan 38 equals opposite of 38 is 8 over the adjacent, which is B. So I solve this just like I solved the last one. I want to multiply both sides by whatever I'm trying to get rid of on the bottom. So I get B times tangent 38 equals 8. Then I divide both sides by tangent 38. And I get B is equal to 8 divided by the tangent of 38. Well, I want to approximate that. So B is approximately equal to 10.24 meters. And that is how you use trig ratios to find missing sides of triangles. So we're going to practice this a lot. If you have any questions, bring them tomorrow.